Anyway, we're here at World Fantasy Con 2024. We're in Niagara Falls, New York. You can hear the falls from here. Not it's not super loud, but they're
You
there.
can hear it, yeah.
Yeah. And I am here with fan favorite Jen Udden. Used to be my agent, stepped back from agenting, was a barista for a little while, and an editor, freelance editor, and now you're an agent again. And I know a lot of my audience has been wanting to hear from you. They appreciate your wisdom, and I think they also find you entertaining. So I thought we'd just check in with you and see how things are going.
Sounds good. Yeah, things are good. Things are going good. You find me on the tail end of 4 months of travel and 3 days of exhaustion, so I might not be the most coherent that I've ever been in my life.
But it's a convention. We miss this feeling, right?
Oh yeah. And World Fantasy, though it is sort of a collection of the strangest people you'll ever meet. It's always a good time.
Yeah, but it's a weird con.
Oh yeah, 100%.
This is only my third. So let me see if I can get this straight. Okay, it's super expensive. It's more expensive than World Con, I think. It's like 200 some per.
It's about
ticket.
the same. It's about the same.
And it's capped, so there's not a lot of people here. It feels like a small con. And the World Fantasy Awards are here, but they are a banquet. It's a banquet held midday Sunday that I forgot to sign up for, by the way. And then afterwards is the awards, like the Nebulas, but the Nebulas are like at night.
And it's fancy.
Yeah. World Fantasy Awards are during the day on Sunday, when half the people have already left and the other half are hungover.
Accurate.
So it's a weird thing. And when the last time I came, it was like, wow, I would say 2015, 2014. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, last time I came, people were talking about how they were so strict about what could be in the dealer room. Like nothing but books, only people dealing books.
Yeah.
Nothing, no comic books, no manga, no art, no jewelry.
Yeah.
And now that has definitely changed. I saw some comic books out there. Laurie Edison, a nerd jewelry creator that I buy from frequently whenever I see her at cons, is here. Way of the Unicorn, Sign of the Unicorn, something. Anyway, and so it seems that's relaxed a little bit.
I'm still chasing the high of the first World Fantasy I ever attended. Sorry, there's a bee.
Yep.
The first World Fantasy I ever attended was in Saratoga Springs. And so it was very publishing pro heavy because every editor who was interested in going, we were all on the same Amtrak from Penn Station to Saratoga Springs. So the con started at Penn Station and, kind of continued the whole weekend. And so it was really fun because there was just like a really nice group of people, like a big group of publishing. That was the first time I met Anne Grohl from Del Rey. She sat me down and was like, I'm excited to talk to you, but I can't tell you anything about Game of Thrones. I was like, I wasn't going to ask about Game of Thrones, but good to know. So I'm still kind of chasing that feeling. It feels like this is a much more sort of fan-heavy convention, but not in a way of like, I don't know. Also, the average age is very high.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing you need to not do. That's another thing, chasing away everything but literature. It's great to have your pure literature con, but the younger fans are not going to be interested, and then your con will die.
Yeah.
As your attendees die, which everyone tends to do.
I mean, we all do, essentially. Yeah, I mean, and, it's been interesting because I registered for the con so that I could, get in and out of the convention center and things like that. But I haven't attended a single piece of programming. And I was looking at the programming and I was just like, A, I don't know who half these people are. And B, none of this is really interesting to me. And I feel bad shit talking like an event that seems very well organized in general. Like,
very well, yeah.
But it's also, I feel like we were talking about this last night, like this is such a weird con because normally if you're listening to this podcast, like if you've never attended a con before, there's a thing called BarCon.
Yes.
And BarCon is the lifeblood of the con experience. Like it's not the programming, it's not the meetings, it's hanging out afterwards. And you don't even need to be drinking, although it helps. But you're in an area and you sort of stay there all night. And because it's a centralized area, you kind of see everybody.
It's one of those things where you think, would sitting down next to an editor and hearing them talk for half an hour helped my career, yeah, it would. And that is what BarCon is. It's the editor, or it's your favorite author, or an agent, or something,
or another author, or like a friend. Like,
yeah,
you can have so many interesting encounters. And here, I don't know if it's like the off season or what, but the Convention Center Hotel, which is a very nice hotel, has several restaurants in it, and none of them seem to be open.
Yeah. I think the restaurant bar closes at 7. Lee told me.
Yeah, and it's a Rainforest Cafe, which is a fucking...
No, there's another one. Yeah,
the
Torrent, I think. We haven't been there.
I only saw it open for breakfast, so I didn't even realize that it was open for drinks. But the Rainforest Cafe is the only one I've been in, and a glass of wine costs $14.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, this is not fucking Manhattan.
No.
Okay, like, be so fucking for real right now. But also, it's really hard to have a serious conversation while there's like an animatronic snake kind of shrieking in your ear.
Yeah.
It was the elephants for me. Like, every 10 minutes, the elephants would just start like
trumpeting,
moving and trumpeting, and every so often it would go dark because the rain was falling.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
It's an experience.
it's a very strange thing because Jen eventually did find a bar like 2 blocks up. And it was not well attended, which is great, when you're a person who just wants to hang out with writer geeks. We got, we and Maurice brought us, and a lot of Maurice's friends ended up there, and that was a nice little cozy area. But if you hadn't found that,
yeah, I don't know where everyone else was.
I think people were hanging out here because there was food and drink in the dealer room. But talk about lack of atmosphere. It's just it's a big.
You gotta love fluorescent lighting.
Yeah,
you gotta love feeling like you're in a cafeteria in high school.
Yes, and I heard that there was karaoke in the little meeting place, also with a bar. Just someone having a cash bar.
But you couldn't get me to do karaoke at gunpoint.
I know. And I was thinking about doing it, but you were. I thought I would enjoy myself more if I hung out with you over at the bar that had the $6 wine. So
I hope you did. I hope you did have fun. I had fun.
Absolutely.
I actually discovered that I do enjoy karaoke if it is in a private room with like a small group.
Okay.
It's more of the sort of public performance aspect of karaoke that I realized is my least favorite thing.
I see.
But my friend Maura is really into like K-Town karaoke bars where you like rent a private room.
Oh, right.
And so it's just you and like 3 other people or 4 other people, depending on the size of the room. And I was like, this is actually really fun because we're all terrible, but it's not like a performance.
Yeah, that was like Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
And Rockstar? No. Anyway, whatever the Guitar Hero became.
Yeah.
That was that.
Yeah.
Have parties at the house, and I sang some Offspring, I will admit. Badly.
Nice.
But one other weird thing about World Fantasy is they don't put people on a lot of programming.
Yeah.
They might do different for the guests of honor, but for like I was on one panel, and most people I know were on one panel. And as someone who has been overly scheduled, that can be a lot, but it's like I just wonder why they choose some of the things they choose.
Yeah, and
and there's one autograph slot. It's 2 hours, and it's for everybody.
You said it was like a gulag. You're like, I'm just trapped here for 2 hours.
I signed more books than I thought I would. I was also sitting beside Maurice, who had a lot of traffic. But yeah, it's just a bunch of people sitting there hoping maybe that someone will wander by and want one of their books, or some were selling, some just hoped that they bought them in the dealer room. Pretty sure cars not supposed to make that noise.
I don't think so. Yeah, definitely not.
Okay.
It's really funny that we've been sitting here sort of critiquing a con, which I've had like a really good time. But this is, I can't think of another industry where it's so relationship driven, and where like the mechanics, like you have to have a sort of certain set of mechanics to like facilitate those relationships. So if any one of those things is thrown off, like there's no BarCon, there's no central place, everything just feels really weird, and you're like, there's an imbalance in the force.
Yes. Well, I don't feel it's like critiquing. I'm pointing out what's different than every other con I've been to.
Yeah.
I mean, some people may love the fact that they only have one panel, and they do make.
Maurice was mad that he was even on one.
So anyway, but to you, I know a lot of people want to know you left the industry
I did.
In 2020
when everything was bad.
You had some of your clients still text you from time to time with pictures of naked children on wine bottles. To pick some that only happened the once, right? And we're not going to talk about which former client that was, but you stepped away and now you're back, and I'm thrilled. But just to be able to see you and that you're thriving, I think
so. Yeah. I'm having a really good time. I started, I did a lot of different things while I was gone. I freelance edited. I worked for a brief period of time for a comic book company, which was the less said about that, the better. Okay. Let me just say that I wish I had Googled the guy that I was going to be working for sooner than when I did. So I worked there for a minute. I temped. I worked as the barista. I actually still cover shifts there occasionally. I worked as a sort of like personal assistant. I did a lot of different things, but about a year ago, I started really missing being an agent, because one of the things about freelance editing is that it's very helpful, I think, for a certain subset of people. I think it's good for some people who are able to pay for it to get like a professional eye on their work. But I could never see anything through to the end, because I would give my thoughts, I would have the conversation with the author, and then they would go off into the ether, and I'd be like, how did it go? Like, did you self-publish? Did you get an agent? Did you get a deal? Like, what happened? Was my work helpful? And I really missed being able to kind of have an impact on people for more than one project. There also is a sense in that this didn't happen often, but there was definitely a couple of times where I gave people feedback and, my honest professional opinion, hopefully, constructively delivered, and people would get mad at me that I wanted them to, do work. Like, oh, I paid you. You're supposed to just say it's great. I'm like,
the validation tax, or
I'm like, if you wanted me to just say that it's great, you should have paid me a lot more money. Quite frankly, because I'm not paid enough. I'm not paid enough to lie to you.
Yeah,
that this is ready for prime time. So all those things sort of combined, and also I missed having only one job and not 9 jobs. Yeah. And a friend of mine sent me a job listing and was like, I think it's dumb you're not an agent anymore. Like, you should still be agenting. And I was like, fine.
Oh, fine.
Oh, fine.
If the people want
me, I can be bullied.
So what's different now?
There are things that are different, and there are things that are just absolutely the same. Everything still takes a million years. It takes a while to get responses on things. It takes a while to get, for me to read things. I've got manuscripts that I've been sitting on for really just a shameful amount of time, but that's, as it ever was. I would say that one thing that I think is different is that people, and maybe this is just what I'm sort of hyperfixating at the moment, people are much more willing to talk about fan fiction. They're much more willing to talk about their involvement in, their writing of, their enjoyment of. I remember when I started out, and it would sort of be like a code, like my online community. And it's like, oh, yes. Okay, which one? Are we talking AO3 or are we talking fanfiction.net?
Yeah.
But now it's much more open, much more willing to be talked about. People are much more open about actively seeking out people who have written fan fiction to either file its serial numbers or work on something new. And that to me is just wild. And I think that we can owe a lot of the things like romantasy and cozy fantasy. I think that those trends are almost directly tied into the more open enjoyment of fan fiction in sort of culture and society. I don't know. It's hard to think about what's changed and what hasn't, because so little has. The same imprints are around. They've maybe gotten a little bigger or a little smaller. Maybe there's been some change of staff and editors and things, but people are still making books.
Yeah.
Thank God.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think has changed? I mean, you've been in the game longer than I have. So what do you think has changed over the last, 5 years?
The fan fiction thing is interesting. I remember, I wish I could remember who it was, but I was interviewing an agent a couple of years ago, and he said he was actually reading fan fiction looking for authors,
Mhm.
which was the exact, it's like, you don't want to tell anybody you're writing fan fiction because it's still a copyright violation.
Well,
And
it exists in this weird legal gray area where as long as you're not making money off of it, it's fine. But it's like the fair use thing. Naomi Novik assembled a small team of lawyers to establish the right to do this. But
yeah, but hers was way different, wasn't it?
no, I mean she made the Archive of Our Own. She established the Organization for Transformative Works.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does she have time to write?
I don't know. Girl, last year she published like a 150,000 word Robb Stark harem fic. But I read the entire fucking thing up. It was basically just like Robb Stark has sex with everybody and solves all the problems in Game of Thrones. I was like, this is better than the show.
So wait, she's still doing fanfic?
Yeah.
Oh my god. What have I done with my life? I
just published a lot of really amazing books, and running this and other podcasts and running a cool Discord and.
Oh, you're talking about me.
Yeah, I'm talking about you. You've done very cool things, Mark.
Thank you. I just, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of since new Dragon Age game is coming out in 10 days, not that I'm counting. A lot of my Discord are talking about bringing up Dragon Age fanfic again and writing Dragon Age fanfic, and it's just so much fun listening to them do they're talking. But so fanfiction's awesome. I love it. Gosh, I don't know. It's hard to say because you being an agent, you're supposed to be looking at the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as a podcaster, I'm supposed to, but as a writer, I'm just looking at me and how my career has developed and how I am having to accept the fact that I may need to do heavy rewrites on every book I publish. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because the goal is to make it better at the end. And the fact that I do have to do heavy rewrites does not mean the book is crap.
No, not at all.
And
everyone, I mean, I don't think that there's been a single book that I've ever signed that didn't need something.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the Midsolar Murders, I didn't know if it was like blame it on the pandemic, existential ick or whatever, but those were the hardest books I've ever had to write. Just like they went back and forth with the editor, and mystery had to get tweaked or rewritten entirely.
Mysteries are fucking hard, though.
They're so hard. I am so glad that my next book is not a mystery. And who knows, I might miss it. I kind of handshaked a short story mystery sale here, which will be fanfic of my own book.
Nice.
So,
is it fanfic if it was your book?
I don't know, but it's basically there's my series has a writer as the main character, just because she can't get any other job because people die around her, and but in book 3 she meets another author, and he has made his name by doing a sentient Venus flytrap noir series. So you've got
love it.
The flytrap is named Zesty a Boy, and which is directly stealing from Blazeball. And so I was thinking I could just write a Zesty a Boy story and Venus flytrap noir.
I love it.
And
no notes.
Yeah. So yeah, that feels like fanfic of my own stuff. But of course, Kat Valente did an entire successful series based on a book within one of her books, right?
Which one?
The Fairyland.
Oh yeah. I think that's one of the cool things about writing is that you can sort of you get to make your own rules about the stuff you write and the worlds you create and the directions you go. I did a little bit of writing myself during the pandemic. I self-published a romance novel, and I've been working on a fantasy on and off for ages. And it's been really interesting. I guess actually that's another thing. You asked me what had changed. There is, I think, a more accepting attitude towards publishing professionals also being writers. So, agents being writers, editors being writers. There's some people who sort of more publicly identify as authors. I don't necessarily claim that title for myself. But it is nice to know that I can have my own creative pursuits and still be an agent, and people still want to sign with me and query me and stuff like that. I'm always very upfront with people when I sign them. I'm like, or when I offer representation, I'm like, hey, just FYI, you may know this, but if you didn't, I do write on the side. I've written a romance novel. I will theoretically someday finish the sequel to said romance novel. Well, in all of my spare time.
Why do you feel the need to do that?
Because I don't want them to feel like I want them to, I feel like it's really important for them to know that I'm putting my clients first. Because this is such a weird relationship. It's like, it's somewhere between a friend and a lawyer and a business partner and
a marriage.
It's this,
because you're not allowed to date someone new or even ask someone if they're free for a date until you've left your previous spouse.
Exactly.
And that's how agents work.
Exactly. And I think that, if someone, for example, was writing a fantasy novel and like knew that I was querying or knew that I was out on submission, like I think that if someone had a weird feeling about that, that's okay. Like if they thought that I was sort of like competing for a spot. Because as you know, it's very hard to like get a book published.
So here's a question. Would you sign someone who had written a mafia romance?
Probably.
Okay.
But I don't read a lot of mafia romance. I wrote one, but I don't read a lot of it.
Well, that's
the reason I wrote the one I did is because I was just like, I hate all these alpha assholes who are just like, oh, I'm gigantic and rude and angry and violent and
you must tame me.
Exactly. And I'm just like, no, but what if a golden retriever instead? And actually, speaking of fanfic, that whole trope of like the sort of shut-in heroine was inspired by a TV show that I'd watched, and I was just like, it's a Thai BL show called Kin Porsche, about a mafia family, and it's pretty good. It's very weird, but the older brother of this trio of brothers, like got kidnapped when he was younger, and so hasn't left his house in like 10 years. So I was like, oh, interesting. What would that look like in a romance setting? And then I sort of went down this rabbit hole, and then 80,000 words later, here we are.
I'm pretty sure some people just perked up their ears. So you want to say the name of your book?
Oh, it's called Marrying In, and my pen name is Jennifer Stratton.
Okay.
Which is my middle name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just curious how you would feel about.
Oh, I mean, that's the thing is like I didn't want to do the work of like differentiating. I was like, I'm just going to be open about this. I'm just going to be open about the fact that I've written this. I'm going to be open about the fact that I self-published. I link to it in my newsletter every week. I feel like I could, sort of go it's my secret pen name route, but that's so much fucking work. Like, I don't have that. I'm not good at like separating.
Why did you choose a pen name?
Just because there's a lot of smut in it, and I just felt if I ever wanted to publish the fantasy, I would want that to be under my real name. And so I think it is useful for like brand differentiation to have like a pseudonym for like different genres, so that like people who know me for my romance, like if they got something else, wouldn't be like, what the fuck is this? This is not. Yeah. This isn't the.
Yeah, we don't want the Ursula Vernon experience of having to run across a library doing a slow motion no to stop a mother from grabbing one of her adult books for their children, which is why we have T. Kingfisher now.
Speaking of writing a million books, I feel like I'm in a Slack group, and there's like a books channel, and every so often people are like, "Oh my god, which T. Kingfisher should I read next?" I'm like, "How many are there?"
There are a bunch,
and every time they mention a new one that I haven't fucking heard of, and I'm like, "Oh damn, all right."
Well, I mean, she does, horror, and she does fantasy, and she does work for Tor, and she does her own self-pub stuff, and she had cancer last year and still managed to
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, she had breast cancer, pretty aggressive.
How's she doing?
Great.
Good.
Yeah, she's clear. She
That's great.
Yeah.
Not great that she had it, but great that
but it's funny. It's just like she was telling me I'm like, I have cancer is probably the best excuse you have. Everybody's going to understand. But Ursula's still like, must finish book. And so she's very, very work oriented. I wish I could be the same. I
mean, everyone's wired differently though. I mean, I feel like it's gotta be a little difficult to, be going through cancer or something really painful like that and still have that. I wouldn't want to have that feeling of like I must finish the book while I'm also trying to like keep my body from like eating itself. Like I wouldn't want. Like I'm glad that she found comfort that way, but I would not be having a good time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't enjoy writing that book.
I would just be playing video games all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Video games all the time.
I actually know people, speaking of Dragon Age, I know people who are like, sorry, I'm not going to be finishing this story, or I'm not going to be giving you X, Y, and Z because Dragon Age is coming out, and I'm going to be playing that for the next 1,000
I know people who are taking time off work. I know.
I'm actually a little grateful that I never really got into video games, because I feel like that would be like one hyperfixation rabbit hole too many for me.
It is a big one. Yeah. I want to do speaking of fan fiction, I really want to do like a psychological thriller based on Stardew Valley.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How would that work?
I don't know.
Because I thought that Stardew Valley's whole thing was that it was cozy and like.
It is, but if you talk to some of the people enough, you get some weird backstory and some weird. Okay, so there's a wizard who lives in a tower outside of town.
Is he evil?
No, not really. He's a man.
Okay. Well.
And I mean that as a human person who makes stupid mistakes. He's got purple hair and a beard, and just kind of says, I don't go into town very often. I made a mistake once. And then, later on you can hear that he once had a wife, and he made her angry, and she got so jealous she turned green, and he shut her up in a cave, which I have a little bit of problem with. But you can see her flying around on occasion, so she can get out, but it's still kind of weird. Anyway, and then, there's this family in town with a dad with like brown hair and a mom with green hair, and then a daughter with purple hair. And there are little hints, especially as the girl, like, when she has her free time, wanders like out to the outskirts of town and wants to go into the mines and find magic swords and stuff. And pretty much everybody in fandom's like, oh yeah, that's the wizard's daughter. She's yeah.
Oh.
And then you go, when you get to a certain level with the shopkeeper, her dad, it's like, it says, you have found Pierre's stash. And I'm like, what is Pierre's stash? And it's like, it never tells you. It's like you have the option to say, I'll keep your secret, or no, I think your wife needs to know about this.
But you don't know what the secret is.
No.
Oh my god.
You just find Pierre's stash.
That's demented.
And there have been a lot of questions about some of the parentage. There are very few, like, there's no nuclear mother, father, child, everyone related by blood family. There's like a mixed, no, there is, sorry. But there's an awful lot of stepfathers and stepmothers and single parents, and then you wonder about those things, and Pierre's just kind of sneaky. And
what has Pierre gotten up to?
And the mayor is sleeping with someone in town. He is a single man with the house. She is a single woman with a house and an adult relative and a child relative living with her. But these are two single adults who are consenting adults who have to have sex in a bush and won't tell anybody in town. So one of the times you can find them.
I feel like I did not know anything about Stardew Valley other than like farming for acorns, and this is like a whole psychosexual backstory that I was completely unaware of.
It really is. I'm serious. If you go to a certain spot at a certain time of night and you poke the bush, they'll jump out, and you can walk. If you get to a certain...
Maybe that's just their kink. It's not that they're,
forced to have you can find them having an argument of like, when will you please tell people about me? And he's like, no, I have an image to maintain. And
oh my god,
image a single man who lives alone and chooses to have sex in bushes instead. I mean,
yeah, that's kind of
And the mayor is building a statue of himself made of gold. That's weird.
That is very weird.
So yeah, there's a lot of weird shit going on in that town. You just have to play, and like, you have to talk to people and get your relationships up to start unveiling their secrets.
Oh my god, that's wild. Who knew? Well, you did, but I did. Again, it's probably good that I don't play video games because this would drive me.
So it's like stuff like that makes me think. You could put a psychological thriller with a lot of dark secrets in the past kind of thing going on there, and.
You think that this is an idyllic fantasy land,
Mm-hmm.
but actually,
Everybody loves each other so much. Yeah, your grandfather died and left you a really shitty farm, and then, but it's like the farms all have some sort of body of water on it, and if you go fishing there, all you fish up is trash and glasses. And so my headcanon was my grandfather was an eye doctor who just like would just sit beside his pond and drink and be mad and throw cans and trash
oh my
and
god,
glasses into the water. And yeah, it's just a weird world.
every fact I learned about Stardew Valley is bewildering.
Yep. So anyway, that's my weird
I like it.
thing, like, kind of going off in the back of my head. But
I like it. Yeah, it's been fun sort of having this like sort of creative outlet on the side, but the downside is that, I do feel like, if I have downtime and I'm, not doing anything, I feel like I should either be, reading client work or reading manuscripts.
you gotta rest.
Then I just end up on my phone.
You can do Stardew Valley on your phone.
Oh no. No, not today, Satan.
I'm sorry. Well, so you told me earlier this weekend that you were close to submissions.
Yes, I'm hoping to reopen mid-November.
Okay, and what are you looking for? What are you looking to represent?
I'm in this new phase of my career. I'm only doing adult fiction.
Mhm.
If one of my clients writes kid fic kid fic, that sounds really fucked up. Like if one of my clients ends up writing, for middle grade or young adult after I sign them, great. But I'm only seeking out writers of adult fiction. So science fiction, fantasy, probably a little bit more on the fantasy side at the moment. Horror, mysteries and thrillers, and romance, and romantasy, and any kind of permutation of cross genre in there, because I love a cross genre situation.
All right.
I think it's funny that romantasy became. I mean, I sort of hate that word because it's silly, but there's been books that I've tried to sell in the past that had like a little tasteful on-page canoodling, and they were like, oh, it's too romancy, and I'd just be like, okay, coward. Like, you think people aren't fucking in Lord of the Rings? Like, come on.
Yeah. No, they're not, because there are no women in Lord of the Rings. They don't exist. Except for like 3.
But men can fuck too.
Fair enough. I apologize. I should just cut that out.
This is gay Hobbit erasure. What do you think Sam and Frodo were doing? Let's be real.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, I mean, it's that whole trend is very interesting to me. I think we're about 10 minutes away from reinventing urban fantasy and paranormal romance. But it's been fun. It's been fun seeing the things that people are doing. The things that people publish these days. Some of them are just like, yeah, why not? I heard about this book, Dungeon Crawler Carl. You heard about this?
It's like a
lit RPG that someone published as like a real book. I'm like, yeah, why not?
Oh yeah, there's it's really funny. I have gotten some cozy fantasy and some lit RPG, and it's like people could be good writers and they could have great ideas that really appeal to a lot of people, but they also don't have editors. So
yeah,
there are like super long books.
So long.
Like I got Heretical Fishing, which apparently is about a guy who a lit RPG, and what he does, he goes in and joins a fishing. Basically his game is a fishing game. I haven't even listened to the whole thing, but it's really long.
Yeah.
it's in there. It's not the only one. So
and that's I think interesting too, because obviously traditional publishing is picking up these like self-published things that have been published online, and to a certain extent they can't really edit them when they get traditionally published, because the readers expect them to be sort of like the thing that they bought. And so I'm always really curious as to how like the next thing is going to go. Like particularly I have sort of mixed feelings about Hermione being the pairing that has made it from Harry Potter fan fiction, but the Draco and Hermione as a pairing. I sort of, yeah, exactly. But so Del Rey is publishing an incredibly long Hermione AU called Manacled, and they've retitled it. They filed the serial numbers and everything. And I'm like, I know that author has written just like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words of this particular pairing in this particular world. And so I'm always very curious as to how that relationship works with an editor who's picked something up, off of KU or off of AO3, like, because I only had one experience of filing serial numbers in my career, and it wasn't super positive. But I'm just always very curious about how the next thing goes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll find out.
Maybe you will.
Although I'm less interested. I've signed people who have written fanfic before. I've signed people because I've read their fanfic and loved it. But like I said, I'm not really interested in the serial number filing. I'd rather just find a good writer and have them write something original.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know what you're looking for. Your book is marrying in. Your newsletter is still a faster no.
A faster no, yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully you'll be open to submissions in about a month.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Jen.
I've
missed you dearly, and I'm so glad you're back in the game.
I know that we've seen each other in the interim, but it does feel, it does feel different being back as a professional. And, it's not that no one takes you seriously when you're sort of just attending as a rando person, but it does feel nice to sort of have backing again.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's go inside and do that World Fantasy Con thing.
Sounds good.
And World Fantasy Award thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll pick up for T. Kingfisher and get to do a speech about animals.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to I Should Be Writing, the longest running writing podcast in existence. This episode was made possible by the Fabulous, who support the podcast via Patreon or Substack. Join the Fabulous at patreon.com/mightymur or mightymur.substack.com. Theme music provided by John Anelio, art provided by Numbers Ninja, and podcast hosting provided by Libsyn. This episode is released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 license. You can find all of my books and podcasts at murverse.com.
Doctor Who.